an alcoholic. My name is Johnathan.
Hey, Johnathan.
And I was trying to get to Clint before the meeting started to tell him just keep it simple. Didn't need that big introduction. But yeah, so I'm an alcoholic. My name is Johnathan, and it is an honor to be here and to be sober tonight and be a part of Alcoholics Anonymous. And so my job is to tell you in a general way what I was like, what happened, and what I'm like today. And start off saying that I got a sponsor who has a sponsor, and we're all currently stay current with our sponsors in some form or another, whether that be in the big book or in the 12 and 12. My sobriety date is 2/25/14, and so that means I'm coming up on 5 years, hopefully. Let's see. Got a home group. It's the Keeping It Sober group here. We meet on Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock for open discussion meeting, and on Saturday nights for open speaker meeting. So let's see. I've been a part of this home group for just about all of my sobriety. Certainly the whole time that I've been back here in Moore County. I am from Moore County. Grew up right here in Southern Pines. I've lived here all my life except for 3 or 4 months when I got out of treatment. I went down to Wilmington in a recovery home and started learning how to stay sober outside of treatment down there, and was able to move back to town when they opened up some recovery homes here in Moore County. And all that was through Samaritan Colony. So as far back as I can remember, I'll start off by saying I've always been real fearful. Never felt like I measured up to other people. Just, totally feeling out of place no matter where I'm at. My parents were divorced as far back as I can remember also. And I grew up living with my grandparents right down here on Midland Road in Southern Pines. And, that was a very, very loving household. My grandparents took good care of me. Not, much drinking or partying or anything of that nature that I can really recall at all. They would, do things with me like, some of the memories I have are like going down to the lake and feeding bread to the ducks and stuff like that. Always taking me to like McDonald's or the restaurants around and giving me the Happy Meals with the toys and stuff. So, I feel, that, it was very, very loving, like I said. And, I was the only one in the household, so I was, I don't know if I would say I was spoiled, but I was well taken care of. Up until the age of, 7 or 8, I always did good in school. I remember being up playing at one of my friend's house right up the road, and my dad pulled up in the driveway. I don't remember having much contact with my dad prior to this, but somehow or another I knew like that was his vehicle pulling in the yard and at my friend's house. Then it scared me, and I took off running back toward home, which was my grandparents' house, and he chased me down and grabbed me and toted me back to the truck, and off to his house I went, and that's where I would he would end up taking my mom to court and get custody of me, and like my whole life got flipped upside down. For a lot of years I considered, I thought and held a resentment that like he kidnapped me from my family. And really after being introduced to AA and going to Samaritan Colony, they were able to show me and that my dad was just wanted the best thing for me, and that was to be in a more stable household. Or to be with an actual parent, I would say. I think my grandparents' house was, definitely a good environment for me to be in. But, so what happened is I went from being the only kid to introduced to a stepmom, and she had a daughter, which would be my stepsister. And, just, that household was, it actually turned out to be a good living environment for me also. There was just a lot of competition, I think, with my stepsister. She had her other side of the family, and I had mine, and it just seemed like, life wasn't fair. She always got the better gifts for birthdays and Christmases and stuff like that, and other side of her family seemed to have more money than mine did, and it just, I got blamed for all the stuff that happened in the house, and, just one thing after another, just, never being happy, really. My dad seemed to, always take up for the wife or for the stepmom and the stepsister, whatever, but, I never understood those things. It just seemed like everybody was out to get me. I would say at that same point was when I started acting up in school, getting in trouble, getting suspended, and I think that was when I started just acting out for attention, because I wasn't getting the same attention as being the only child with my grandparents. And so there around that same time, my dad got the custody of me, and I don't know if anybody has experience with that, having a mom and a stepdad and a dad and a stepmom, but generally you live with one of them and you go visit the other one on the weekends or every other weekend or so. That was the case with me, and on my mom's side there was a lot of partying going on, a lot of drug activity going on, and when I'd go over there, I wouldn't see anything wrong with that behavior. It kind of, I just like being around that behavior, actually. I don't know why I was drawn to it, but I was. And I guess what I mean by that is I would never go home to my dad's house and say, hey, this is what they're doing over there. So, I guess as I got a little older, I don't remember exactly, when I started drinking or getting high for that matter. But what I will say is there's an extremely large amount of drugs in my story, and I try to keep it to a minimum, but it's part of my story, so I think it's important part to share. What I also will say is I feel like they got me here to AA a lot quicker than alcohol was, and that I'm grateful for. And I think it's important to say that since I've been in Alcoholics Anonymous, this is where I find my comfort at. This is where I find, my comfort. I was able to experience the other fellowship, NA, when I was down in Wilmington, and it just, I don't know, nothing bad against it. I know a lot of people staying sober through that program, but I just didn't feel as comfortable as I do in AA, so that's where I choose to be at. And also, I can look back after looking at my story in my life that, alcohol was always a big part of it. I always drank uncontrollably and always for the effect produced by alcohol. So, being said that, I can realize and look back and know that from the very beginning, there was no control. I would either black out, get sick, drink till it was gone, or all those. So, and of course, it started out like on the weekends, just doing, drinking a little bit, going over and staying at a friend's house and, raiding the liquor cabinet or refrigerator for beer, small things like that. And of course, as we got older, it would, start going to parties and stuff like that. And eventually I'd be out on my own and, I could just drink and party whenever I wanted to. And over the years, there was some control in the beginning. It wouldn't be nothing to drink as hard as we wanted to and get up and go to work the next day and like nothing ever happened. And, I've always been, I do construction work, carpentry work, build houses, and I've always been, that's what my dad did and my grandfather did, and, I don't know, it's just something that's always come natural to me, and, so I've always had a good work ethic, and I've always enjoyed going to work. I've maintained a job throughout, since I was very young, for the most part. There's been a few moments in between there toward the end where I was just where I had gotten totally unemployable and unable to show up. But I worked for one guy for probably 10 years, and he put up with a lot of stuff. When I first got here, I heard a lot of people talk about enablers and stuff like that, and just really I was mad because I didn't think I had any enablers to help me out, getting high and doing that kind of stuff. But the truth of the matter was, like, the employer that I worked with for that 10 years, like, he put up with a lot of stuff, you know what I mean? Laying out of work, any given day, sometimes weeks at a time, for a whole week, getting arrested and getting locked up and, doing jail time and prison time, and him still putting me to work, like I'm able to see, like, that's a huge enabler for me. But, and the thing is, like, that really does enable you, to go just a little bit longer and a little bit further. And, because what I found out is when that guy finally fired me, I found out that it was pretty hard to maintain a job because a lot of people don't put up with that kind of behavior, getting arrested and laying out of work all the time, and when you do show up, you're not in any condition to work, but so relationships that I've been in over the years, I haven't ever been in any healthy relationship. I've never known how to have a relationship with anyone. I've always used them for whatever I could get from them. Never known how to treat a woman. I've always been unfaithful, and and I thought, I really just didn't know any other way, really. So. As time went on, I got into selling drugs early on, and I did that for, really my whole time, drinking and getting high right until the very end there before I got sober. And, that was something that I don't know if I picked that up from some of my family or not, but what I found out is that stuff made you important, and it gave me that attention that I was striving for. And it also allowed me to do the things that I wanted to do for either a lot cheaper or for free. And, I never had anything to show for that stuff. It all got spent up in drinking and getting high, one form or another. And, there were a lot of years that I could do that stuff and put it up and not do nothing on the weekdays. And, then really is what happened is that eventually came to a point to where, like, I had to have that stuff to get up and function through the day, and I even had to have it to lay down and go to sleep. And if y'all have experienced anything like that, man, it's a bad spot to be in. When you've had something in your system to get you to go to sleep, and your eyes pop open at 1, 2, 3, whatever time it is, and that stuff's worked its way out your system, and your eyes open and you know what time it is. It's a miserable place to be. And, so I lived like that for a lot of years, spending a lot of time wishing I was dead, just an absolute misery, just every waking moment consumed with getting high, looking for it, trying to find it, just totally consumed with it. And, early on in recovery, I heard a lot about serenity and peace, and man, I just didn't know what that really was. But, after being here for a little while, like I know that, the lifestyle that I was living, there was absolutely zero peace and zero serenity in the way I was living. And, so I would say that, getting there toward the end, I'd find myself living in places with no power, not washing clothes or taking showers or anything of that nature, just in a total mess, you know what I mean? Just totally broken and lost and not knowing how, just not knowing how to not do that stuff, you know what I mean? Just being sick and tired of living that way and just not being able to do anything about it, not knowing what to do about it, and just a lot of years spent suffering from the mental obsession to drink and get high and absolutely just be clueless of what I'm up against. Getting paid on Friday and spending all your money and not being able to buy any groceries or pay any rent or pay any bills or do anything of that nature, and like the guilt and remorse and the shame and everything that comes with that, having to tell the landlord another lie, having to lie to everybody to borrow money to get cigarettes or food through the week, and just doing it, time and time again, and spending the whole week telling myself that, like, I'm not going to do it this week. I'm just not going to do it, no matter what. You know what I mean? I'm going to pay some bills, gonna try to straighten up and do right and not do that kind of stuff, and mean it all week long, and get that paycheck on Thursday or Friday. It was Thursday back then, but don't matter what day it is, but get that paycheck and I still got all intentions of going and doing that stuff, but first I'm gonna just do one. And I'm here to tell you, I've never done just one my whole life, but every time my brain tells me that I'm just gonna do that one. You know what I mean? Just get your little buzz and go take care of some of this stuff and not be all crazy like I was last week. And the truth is, like, man, it was never like that. It was always, spend the whole paycheck, never knew. The bottom line is I never knew what was going to happen when I did that one. You know what I mean? Just never knew where I was going to wind up at, how long I was going to be up, what I was going to do, who I was going to be with, none of that kind of stuff. Eventually I met this girl and at the bar, like we normally do, like I normally do, I'll say. But, I thought things was going to be different. I'd actually kind of straightened up a little bit, wasn't doing too, and I say straightened up, that means I probably went from sniffing all the cocaine and doing all the pills to, like, just drinking. For me that was, just a pint a night, that wasn't too bad. I was doing pretty good during those times. But, I was never one when it was come to the drinking, like I could never just drink a little bit. Never. I could never put the bottle up and save any. It was just like, unheard of. But like, so, a lot of y'all know this girl. She's in recovery also. She's actually my fiance today. But like, we met and she had a daughter at the time, and, her dad hadn't had a whole lot to do with her, and I don't know if he's one of us or not, but it's just so our relationship started out pretty good, and it ended up real bad. Doing a lot of things that I'm sure both of us said we'd never do, but the thing is, like, having a kid in the mix, and I look at that daughter today like she's mine, and you know, and I always wanted to have kids, but like I never, like during all my active alcoholism, you know, I'd see like friends and other people that I knew having kids, and I couldn't understand like why I wasn't having any or whatever, and you know, it's crazy. But like today, like I know that like God was blessing me then by not having any, like He's blessing me today by having one, and you know, I wasn't fit to be a parent. You know, I tried hard, but like the drugs and alcohol, man, they'll just make you somebody that you don't want to be. You know, and I say that you know say like I was. You know, I'd let her stand out there and bang on the door for hours on end, you know what I mean? Because I had to do one more, you know what I mean? Or I'd scoop her up in the middle of the night and drive across town because I got to get one more, you know? And there toward the end, you know, just not, just totally like writing her off, you know what I mean? Just not wanting nothing to do with her. You know, just really being a pitiful excuse for a parent, you know, or a boyfriend for sure. You know, but like the thing is, you know, that relationship went to some real dark places, and you know, we found ourselves, you know, needing help, and I'd say, you know, probably a good year before I got sober. You know, things got to a real bad spot. They ended up moving out, you know, which, you know, like I thought they never would. But like, you know, it just got, you know, the things that I was doing was just too much, you know what I mean? I had pushed them away, and, you know, I found myself, like totally lost, totally broken, nowhere to go. You know, not even having enough gas in the vehicle to, you know, get to work, or at that time I was going to the methadone clinic, you know, not even having enough gas to even go there and get my dose. You know, so, you know, so anyway, I was able to reach out. I went to that methadone clinic for about 2 years, and I was able to build a little bit of relationship with the counselor that I had there. She really, you know, wanted to see me get some help and do good, and I just couldn't, you know, figure it out on my own. But she ended up getting me into a treatment center at that point where, you know, like I was out of options. You know, I called her and reached out for help, and she was able to get me into a treatment center. And, you know, I chose the one that was co-ed because I felt like that fit me a little better than the first one that they said, which was Samaritan Colony. And, you know, I didn't know nothing about the Samaritan Colony. It was up in Rockingham, didn't know much about it, and just didn't care to go there. And my experience going to the co-ed treatment center was not very well. I didn't pay attention to anything except for the women that were there, and had no concerns for going to a halfway house or an Oxford house or any of that stuff afterwards. Ended up moving in with a friend of mine, and I remember riding up there with my dad, and I'd like to say also that prior to going to treatment, like I didn't have zero relationship with anybody. Like had gotten to a point to where I was totally isolated, no relationship with family whatsoever. Probably hadn't seen them in, you know, a couple years. And, you know, so I remember like it was yesterday riding up there to that first treatment center and thinking that, man, I just needed to get away and get out of the habit of doing the things that I was doing, and I'd be all right. And just know that I couldn't sniff cocaine, and I couldn't daggone eat pain pills because that caused me too many problems. Can't control that stuff. And then I remember getting out of the treatment center, like, God, like feeling amazing. You know what I mean? Like first time I've been able to go to sleep without having to take something, or you know, having to have something to get up and function through the day. And, you know, about 2 weeks out, you know, I think it's important to say also that, in that first 2 weeks there, like there was some thoughts of going to a meeting, but was too embarrassed, too afraid, too scared, to show up, and didn't know what it was about, didn't know anything about it, and the fear certainly kept me from showing up. And so about 2 weeks in, the thought popped in my mind to have a couple drinks at the house, and really just didn't even, no second thought, nothing, didn't see a problem with it, and immediately drinking into a blackout, causing problems at the people's house that was nice enough to let me stay there. And within 2 weeks, I was off doing those other things, and I was able to see that things weren't going too good. And I reached out to the halfway house here in Aberdeen, the Bethesda house, and they were kind enough to let me in without taking a drug test first. And because at that point I'd already started drinking and getting high, and that visit there was short-lived. I got kicked out pretty quickly for failing drug tests, not doing what I was supposed to do. And but one of the best things that happened to me while I was there is like they made you, it was you needed a requirement to come to these meetings down here, and I was able to show up and come in the door and saw a lot of people that I knew, that lived the way I did and was doing the things that I did, and they were supposedly staying sober. Didn't really know what really sober meant at the time, but I wasn't around a whole lot, and that was because I got kicked out of the house. And once I got kicked out of there, I didn't come anymore, but I moved into one of the people's houses that was in the program. And that was another place that I took for granted, didn't pay any rent or no bills or anything. And, eventually that guy kicked us out and, threatened to call the sheriff's department on us. And, I didn't want anything to do with that. So, and I knew, here's the point of that was, it was about 6 or 8 months that I stayed at that house after being down here at the meetings a couple times, and I didn't know what was going on down here, but I knew something was going on down here at the building here, and just had like this sense that if we could just get back here, everything would be all right, and really that was the case. Everything has been wonderful since we've made it back. But like getting here, man, that was like, it felt like almost impossible, but eventually, we got kicked out of that place, and I went to detox, and she went on to another place for the women with children. And, so that was where the journey started for me. I went to that detox, and I had met Mark when I was here, coming a couple times, and, so I knew what to do. I knew he had told me, like, go to the colony or go to detox and ask for a referral. And that's what I did, finally. And, the thing is once I started putting in the action, like, the ball started rolling, and as long as I keep doing the action, the ball keeps rolling. But I got into, I got the referral put in, and I got into the colony after going to the safe house because there wasn't a bed available. And man, I was up there with a couple guys at the safe house that like going to this treatment stuff and doing detoxes was like a natural thing for them, and it was my first time, and man, it was uncomfortable as can be. Pretty scared through the whole thing, but I didn't have any other options. I didn't have anywhere else to go, so I was there, and I waited for my bed to get open at the colony, and showed up at the colony when it was available, and they immediately got us working the 12 steps of recovery of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I remember walking in, and you get your packet of information, man, and it's overwhelming. Everybody else there looks like they know what's going on, and they're happy and doing this thing, and man, I'm scared to death and afraid, and just don't know what to do, lost and broken and desperate, and but the one thing I was, and I didn't know it at the time, but I was willing to do something different, and I started going over the paperwork and like doing the whole history of my life and seeing where drugs and alcohol was played a part in everything that was negative in my life, everywhere I had problems. And then there was the talk about the God thing, and I didn't know anything about God. And I had been to church several times throughout my life, and never, no relationship. Every time I'd been, I'd always felt something, you know what I mean, some kind of feeling, but never knew what to do with it. All the times I was locked up, like I intuitively know to go to prayer. But that's as far as it ever went, was when I was in trouble and locked up or couldn't go to sleep or something of that nature. The cops was behind me, things like that. But, so, I don't know if Mark could sense that, or I don't really remember talking about it, but he had me do this thing like the God Wanted ad, and, just to write down, just like if I was putting an ad out for God, what would I be looking for, and he had me to pray to that God, and told me that was my God. It could be anything I wanted. So like that was where my prayer life started. Didn't know how to do it, didn't really know what to do, was afraid to do it, was embarrassed to do it, didn't want anybody to see me do it. But I did it. And I was taught to pray on my knees in a surrendered position and ask for help to stay sober for that day, for 24 hours. And then I was taught to get on my knees again at nighttime and thank God if I stayed sober for that day. And they taught me how to write a gratitude list, and they taught me how to read something spiritual in nature each day. And they stressed the fact of getting a sponsor and going to meetings, and so was able to do a 4-step in treatment. And I don't know what the deal was, but like I was just more afraid not to do that stuff than I was to do it. And so I did it to the best of my ability, which I think was pretty darn good. I think it plays a big factor in why I'm sober today, is because I got honest and told a lot of those things that I thought I would never tell nobody. And so I got out of treatment and went to a recovery house in Wilmington, like I said. And man, I did not want to do that at all, but I did. Again, because I didn't have no place to go. But I did it. And I did exactly what they told me to do while I was down there in Wilmington. I got a sponsor, went to meetings, continued to pray morning and night, writing the gratitude list and reading the daily reflections. And all those things that I just named, still do all those things today. I don't quite get that gratitude list every single day, but I do it as much as I can. So I stayed down there for, like I said, about 3 or 4 months, give or take a little bit. In the recovery, Samaritan Colony opened up some recovery homes in town and offered me a place to stay. So I moved back up here to town, and I got a sponsor in line before I got back to town. And as soon as I got back, we started meeting every Sunday morning back there in the room and going through the 12 steps of the program. And he taught me how to apply those steps in my life. And I've been able to, since doing that, I've been able to sit down with the new guys and do that same thing, read through the book and show them how it was showed to me. And I became a home group member of the Keeping It Sober group shortly after I got back, and I've held a service position in the home group since I've been a member. I've done a lot of stuff, and I've stayed active in the home group, and I've also stayed active in having other service positions, going to the jails. I've done the prisons, go to the detox center, go back up to Samaritan Colony and talk to those guys, and it plays a huge part in my recovery today. It keeps me centered. It keeps me right in the middle of this thing, and it keeps me involved. And sometimes life gets busy with work and relationships and AA and sponsees. But what I've learned is the sponsees aren't always around, and the service work is, and it keeps me connected. And I, since being sober, I've been able to mend a lot of relationships. I've been able to start building relationships with my family, with my mom and my dad. Been able to make a lot of amends, and that's been a pretty cool experience to right some of those wrongs that I've done to others. There was a lot of people that I borrowed money from, and I meant it when I told you I was going to pay you back, but man, that stuff, when you're wrapped up in active alcoholism and drug addiction, man, that stuff's just way more important when it comes down to it. But I've been able to right a lot of wrongs, still working on that. Me and Shannon's been able to put our relationship back together, and presently engaged, looking to get married next year. We've had another daughter, and that's been a huge blessing. I know as long as I do AA that I'm gonna stay sober, and she don't never have to see me use those behaviors that I've done in the past. And just to be present and experience the joys of being a parent. It's really been a blessing. I've been able to, here's a crazy one, is I've been able to be faithful in this relationship for the past 2 years. And, I thought that was something I would never be able to do. I heard people talk about, the honesty thing early on, and, being able to, leave their phone in the room or something and, I don't know, go take a shower or just leave the room, period, and not have to worry about anything. And really couldn't wrap my head around that early on, but today I can, you know what I mean? If I'm not lying and being dishonest, I don't have anything to worry about. And some peace and serenity comes with that also. So been able to be a good employee. For the past 4 years, I've had the same job, and I show up and I'm productive and I do a good job, and the boss knows that I'm gonna do a good job, and he trusts me. And I haven't had to steal from him. More or less stole and cheated from everybody that I came in contact with, and all those things are I've been able to pay my bills on time. That's pretty cool. I experienced some times in my life where I was able to pay bills and do those kind of things, for a short period, and they make you feel good. And I've been able to experience that again, being sober, and peace and serenity comes with that also. So all those things, are a direct result from Alcoholics Anonymous. I could have never done it on my own, and I'm grateful for Samaritan Colony introducing me to a God of my understanding, and I think it's a real honor to be able to sit down with a new guy and read the 164 pages and see the light go off, and that person to come alive and their life get put back together and start getting better. I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for my sponsor that spent a lot of time with me. And, I think I'll also say that, like early on, like I made a lot of mistakes. I didn't just come on in here and was honest from the very beginning and do everything right. It took a lot of guidance from my sponsor and from me being willing to admit those things to him and tell him what I was doing. And, he'd tell me a lot of the times, good, you're not supposed to be living that way. And eventually, those things stuck, and I started living a little bit different. And it is nice to I don't really know what this means, but it is nice to know that other people see you doing good. Because when I gauge myself, I don't really feel like I'm doing all that good, but I know all the good things that I got going on in my life today are a direct result from Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'll always be grateful for that. Thank you.